All right, here we go. Overdrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 2 all afternoon. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, and look who we have here. Frankie Corrado back in the mix ahead of Game 3 tonight. Perfect timing for you, Frankie.
Yeah, here we go. How you guys doing? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. We've been doing very well. We're plugging along. We got a lot going on, right? U.S. Open. It looks like Boston's going to sweep the Mavs. You got Game 3 of the Cup Final tonight. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Hot weather, too. I love it, man. Although it looks so hot in Carolina. Like so hot in North Carolina right now.
It is so disgusting there. Like, everyone used to show up for the Roddy Brindamore training camp a month early. It was like the unofficial start of training camp. If you didn't show up, you got eyeballs, right? It was like one of those things where we would skate and do these workouts with Pete Friesen and Roddy Brindamore. And that's just what we did down there. August 1st, fire it up, get down there. And if you teed it up after at 1 o'clock, it's the hottest thing you've ever experienced. Like, I've never melted through a golf shirt before. But you would stuff an extra shirt in the bag. Mm-hmm. It's disgusting.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I told you, we were talking about that a couple of weeks ago, that I was speaking with someone at TSN who went down to Florida like a week or two ago. You can play anywhere in the afternoon for like $20.
Yes.
I mean anywhere. Like Bears Club, you know, like the most exclusive places in the state of Florida.
Because they're not doing it. It's disgusting.
Nobody is out there. Locals do not do it. They will play at 7 a.m., maybe 8:30, 9 a.m. tops. By 1 or 2 o'clock, that place is absolutely cleared out. And it's just so hot, and it's been that way at the Open. So we're tracking that throughout the afternoon. Tiger birdies the first hole. Oh. He pars a few in a row, and I'm like, here we go. The Tiger Watch is officially back.
Jimmy Connors. It was Jimmy Connors.
It felt like it for about an hour and a half. It felt like it. And then he started leaking oil. He ends up 4 over on the day. My concern is he shoots 80 tomorrow and goes home. But 4 over is not bad on this course. You know, Scheffler's out there right now. Rory's out there right now. My boy, Patrick Cantlay, 5 under today. Corey Connors, 1 under, so there's some Canadian content. So we're tracking that. And Jays are off today. It's all about the Cup Final tonight. And everyone's got a different view on this one, Frankie. We were talking before the series started. What is the most important game? Is it Game 1? Is it Game 2? I'd say it's Game 3.
It's this one.
It feels like it's Game 3, isn't it?
Old school guy loves to say that Game 3 is the most important. Well, if Edmonton loses, the series is
Frankie,
over.
Isn't it though? Isn't it Game 3? Let's like.
Yeah, it's either the Cup's coming in and Philip Pritchard will be there.
Call it the swing game. This is where it's either going to swing open for Florida and Edmonton has no chance of getting in, or Edmonton tries to get their foot back in the door. Like, I don't know what kind of conversations you had today, but a lot of the conversations I heard regarding this game and Edmonton going back on home ice is now they're going to get the matchup. They got the matchup now. They're going to get away from Barkov, McDavid, Draisaitl. These guys are going to have more room. But Florida down the middle of the ice is going Barkov, Bennett, Lundell. And so if you had to rank those guys as far as how good they are defensively, you're going best in the world, excellent, and very good. Like, I don't think Edmonton going back on home ice is this like silver bullet that's just going to lead to Edmonton winning this game running away. They could win the game for
Lundell's
sure.
a key guy. Like we talked about how it was about, you know, they've traded for guys, signed guys, picked guys off at the scrap heap. That Lundell's a good player for them, and they drafted him in the first round. He's a good player, man.
Yeah, and that's it. That's a very valid point. And, you know, defensively, Ekblad and Forsling have been studs, yet they're going to play so many minutes tonight. You're not going to be able to get away from them. And if you're mixing up McDavid and Draisaitl, one of those two guys is going to see that pairing. And the way that Florida has been defending as a team, on top of it, Bobrovsky's waiting for you. It's going to be a real challenge. And, you know, I'm rooting for a long series. That's what I would like to see happen. But you don't have to be a genius to realize you have to get it tonight. Because look what happened last night in Dallas, where that game was tight in the first half, and then Boston just cruised past them. Credit Dallas. They stayed in the game, but you lose, and it's over. Like, you're not going to get anything out of the Mavs tomorrow night. Last time I checked, they were actually favored, which shocked me.
And hazy.
Shocked me.
the Edmonton or the Florida Panthers are going to be faced with the same thing. I talked about it. The first 10 minutes, how can they get out of the first period down one cob or less? You know what I mean? Because Edmonton's going to say, this is our last shot, man, and they are just going to feed off the energy. God knows what kind of energy the Florida Panthers are going to have. What time did they get in yesterday?
Apparently,
reasonable,
it was a
right,
3 hours after they were scheduled to get in. I was listening to you guys yesterday.
Okay, so it wasn't that bad.
You guys were losing it about I thought you guys were going to strangle whoever planned the travel, like George Costanza, the traveling secretary.
I was furious with Costanza.
Furious.
I needed Wilhelm in there.
You hate travel logistics.
Frank, you think it was stupid?
Yeah, I don't listen. I get the validity of you want to sleep in your own bed one more night, but don't you want to kind of get acclimated up there? That's the only argument that I would say. Get up there, get acclimated. It's a time change. It's a long ways away. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, and just don't put yourself in a position where you're nervous. You know what I mean? You're worried about how are we going to get out? When are we going to get out? But they made it. Ultimately, it's not. I don't think it's going to have any relevancy on the game tonight. If they got in at 3, 4 in the morning, that was going to be a different story. And at some point, it felt touch and go. If those storms kept up, they were not getting out. Yet, I feel like, you get a pro team cup final, the state would have made an exception, possibly, right? They were grounding every other flight. I feel like DeSantis would have come in over the top and said, we got to get these guys out.
Dude, there would have been guys, though, Hayes. There would have been guys that said, this bird is not going anywhere until the weather
freaking out about the weather, right?
Yes,
you can speak to that.
Played with guys, man. They were like, listen, if it's gnarly, we're not going. I'm telling you right now. Some guys don't like flying through that stuff.
Dude, we had to go, and do you know the gif of, who is the wrestler that storms into the ring? Is it
the Ultimate Warrior?
The Ultimate Warrior. That gif. I almost went Ultimate Warrior on an airplane because every year we had to go down to Fort Myers for training camp. That's where the Canes had training camp. Why they went down there, I have no idea, because guess what season it was? Hurricane season. And every year we had to evacuate and get on a bird. And one year we're taking off, and it was a brutal takeoff. And this guy takes a sharp right like I've never seen. And he gets on the mic and he goes, we had to take a sharp right there, avoid the eye of the hurricane. I almost went Ultimate Warrior right to the front of the bird.
Yeah.
Because I hated getting on the bird, period. And
well, that's not information that anyone needs when you're on the plane.
No
right?
kid, that was me on the plane going up to the cockpit because I was furious. He goes, we got to avoid the eye of the hurricane, just a sharp right here. And it was like a right where this thing was going down. And every year we had to leave. And it's like, no kidding, why don't we stop going down there?
That's another thing. Fort Myers in September. Do you know how hot it is down there? It's so hot. You probably were playing where the Everblades play. I think they actually just won the ECHL. I think
three-peat.
Shout out to my good buddy Anthony Peters, who coaches the D there. Great job,
Tony
Petey.
Peters. I like it, getting things done. But I think if you're on a plane, once you're in the air, I don't want to know anything.
No.
I don't want to hear bad weather, hurricane, tornadoes. I don't if there's a rocket coming at us, I don't want to know.
Hayes,
I don't want to hear
I don't
anything.
even want to know if there's turbulence coming.
Me neither. Nothing.
Before the thing takes off, when he goes, we're good for about an hour, and then an hour in, it's going to get real bumpy. I'm just like, you've got to stop saying that. It puts me Don't say it.
Don't give us any
just a little
information.
chop. We're just going to have to get to, but it's coming because that seatbelt sign comes on and then everyone just starts to go like this, what's happening? 30 seconds later, he comes over the I
just look at the stewardess. I just look at the steward and I'm like, if they get nervous, I will literally. You fire an underpants cam on me if the stewardess are nervous, because they're never nervous. They're like, we do this all the time. This is just normal stuff. But if they show any signs of fear, I go nuts. Nuts.
Yeah, if they're rushing to sit down, that's trouble. Trouble. And I've been in that position where you can feel it, they're trying to get the food cart back in time, and then they're like, we got to get down quick because it is going to be turbulent here. That is not anything I want to know. I need to see.
Dude,
but it's all good. The Panthers made it.
There's always that one guy who wants that one more wine too. As that cart is going by, he's got no idea what's going on. It's like,
or
excuse me,
he does know what's going on, and he's like, make that a triple
Right.
Give me wine, beer, whiskey, give me everything.
Dude, that used to be me. Just don't even bring the cart back. Put the cart on my lap.
Yeah.
Put the cart on my lap.
Park it. 17
Park it and put the parking brake on it and leave it here.
Let's get this thing real rowdy at 35,000 feet.
Get the anchor down and leave it. So anyway, we do have a game tonight. Both teams are in attendance. Noodles is there, obviously. Duthie coming up later this hour. JD will set the scene where I think the 50-50 is going to be about $15 million tonight. Although I don't know if they gamble when they're nervous out there, but it's always a story in Alberta. Everyone loves a 50-50, and I'm sure the price tag on that will be exorbitant tonight. And how loud it's going to be, it is disappointing if you're in Edmonton that it's going to feel somewhat manufactured because you're down 0-2. It's a great crowd. It's a great building, and they'll be tailgating out there. It's an early start, so it's going to be loud. If the Oilers score first, that roof is going to pop off. But
nuts.
This is what we've discussed, the last few days, is if Florida gets on the board early, they either weather the storm the first 10 minutes or they come out and score early. I feel like the nervous energy is going to be off the charts because in Edmonton, they're very nervous right now, as they should be. They're down 0-2 against a juggernaut. And if Florida rolls in there and starts taking care of business early and often, or just makes it a low-event game, I can't imagine it's going to be overly rambunctious in there. Over time, it will slow down because they're smart fans and they understand what's at stake, and they understand if you don't get it tonight, that's the end of the road. And the idea of a sweep being on the table, and that's a conversation for tomorrow if the Panthers end up winning, but it could be a reality in about 6 or 7 hours, and that's a completely different beast, right?
Yeah. If it gets ugly, Hayes, and the series is over quickly, and I know people in the business have been talking about it, where it's like Gretzky and the Oilers, they got smoked in their first finals against the Islanders, and they learned from that. But it seems like, and Florida's a great example on the opposite end of it, where it happened to them. They got to the final, and Vegas beat the hell out of them, and all of a sudden they're back the next year. But, man, it just seems like if you get there and don't get it done, the way back just seems like such a grind and a long way there. I don't think there would be any guarantee next year with the Colorados and Vegases and Dallases that the Edmonton Oilers just wheel back to the finals.
No.
That would be a tough ask, man.
It's totally
hard.
agree with you.
And there's always going to be a certain amount of turnover. I feel like tonight so much hinges on Bobrovsky. It almost feels like if you're an Oilers fan, if you're an Oilers player, you're kind of just hoping he has an off night and that leads to something for you. Because if he's dialed in, I don't know how much more you can put at him that's going to put something past him. Are you going to put 4 on the board if Bobrovsky's playing well?
Frankie, do you not think that he's going to be the best? Because I have a feeling that he's just not stopping, and he'll be the best player.
That's
on the
how
ice
I
tonight.
feel. That would be demoralizing for the Oilers if they come out there in the first period, the building's rocking, McDavid's flying around the ice, Draisaitl has a little more juice, and you throw everything at the net, and you got 0 or maybe you get 1, and this guy's feeling it. It's probably not going to happen.
Well,
Yeah.
and I
him
think
and Matthew Tkachuk scare me.
Tkachuk probably should, because offensively he's had some chances, but not a ton, and he's been large. He's kind of blended into the game, yet he's been effective defensively, which is a big part of their team identity. But I think that probably is your answer right there as to why Florida has been able to do it, and why Edmonton, if they don't take advantage of this opportunity, probably won't feel great about getting their chance to do it next year. And what I mean by that is Sergei Bobrovsky is a freak of nature. And the last team that went to multiple cups in a row was Tampa. And Andrei Vasilevsky is a freak of nature. And yes, Florida's a great team. I think they would argue they're better this year than they were last year, certainly during the regular season. They almost missed the playoffs last year. And they're down 3-1 against Boston. And they got on a heater and everything got rocking. A large portion of that last year was Bob was phenomenal. He ran out of gas in the Cup Final, and they got blown out. This year, he's up for the Vezina. He was great. And he's been great since the hop. It's allowed them to play their game, find a formula that works for them, feel good about the way that they play. And then you look at the way he's played in the playoffs, the guy's been unreal. And that's the thing. In order for you to get back to the dance, you usually need that, ace in the hole in net, the guy who's just a freak of nature that's going to play 60 games and say, boys, I'll take us there. And you guys chip in. You guys play defensively strong. We need some heroes. And obviously Florida's got that. Tampa had it when they went to their 3 straight Cup finals. But Vasilevsky was a freak. And Bob is a freak. And I don't think Stuart Skinner is going to be in a position to be a freak. You know, he's going to probably have to be this round. But what I mean by that is looking ahead to next year. You know, and that's kind of what you need if you feel like you can learn from the experience. Even the 80s Oilers, they had Grant Fuhrer in that. You know, and that team was one of the 2 or 3 greatest teams of all time. But timelines are important here. It's these guys are not young. McDavid's 27. This is his 9th year in the league. I referenced it earlier in the week. Gretzky got his 5th year in the season. In the league. The last cup that Gretzky won was his 9th season in the league. He did not win another one. He got to a Cup final in 93.
His 4th Cup was his 9th year in the league.
Yes, and McDavid's in his 9th right now. So it's tough. Like, it's tough, man, and that's what's kind of on the line. And on top of it, if you're risking a sweep or losing in 5 and you don't generate offense, you know, like when you're a guy of his stature, everyone's going to talk about everything you do. And that's kind of what's on the line here for McDavid and Draisaitl and their best players.
Well, and how banged up that team is. Like, even if you had everyone going and everyone healthy, it was going to be very difficult to beat Florida. You had to overwhelm them offensively, so much so that their strong defensive game collapses and their goaltender can't keep up with it. But you got guys that can barely cross over on one side. You got guys that can't play the game, and then they go out and play one shift. It's not a lack of effort, not a lack of skill, not a lack of will in wanting to be there. It's just they're literally way too banged up. So how do you mount a comeback now against a team that's playing as well as Florida is, when you can't even get to 100% capacity because you got key guys that they can't play at the level they can?
You played the position. Like, what is Nurse facing tonight? Like, hip pointer. I have no idea.
It looked like something hip, like, just popped on him, didn't it?
Something like that. But he's going to get, I don't know, shot up or whatever the hell he's going to do to play. But
you know what he's doing? So not only does he have to play the game, and he has to play against Florida, and he has to play against Bennett and Tkachuk, who are great players, and Barkov's going to lean on you. He's got to try and find a cadence so that he's not hunched over in pain every time he's on the ice. And he's going to have to think, okay, can I skate fast here? Do I have to be stationary here? So now he's playing 2 games in his head at the same time. Like, it's going to be.
I think he's just more simple. It's more simplified than that. I think he's got to figure out a way to play the whole game. Because if he goes out there and plays 2 shifts and somebody just bumps into him and he's done, then you're down a D. And I don't know who the hell his replacement would be, but it's like he's got to find a way to play. And he's got to find a way to play effective as well.
Maybe they got to go
11-7's a possibility. The danger with that is you get a Fogle situation. Someone gets kicked out or Evander Kane can't play. You could be down to 9-10 forwards pretty quickly.
You know what, though? You would just be playing McDavid and Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Hyman. Like
You're probably doing that anyway,
right?
You probably have to anyway.
You're probably going to play 10 forwards tonight, realistically.
Yep. Yeah, you got to find the guys that are going, and you're just going to run your best players into the ground and challenge them. And I think they're up for the challenge. Like I think Edmonton's going to get 1 back home, and I still think Florida's going to win the series naturally. Obviously, that hasn't changed them up 2-0. But I really hope it's not. I hope we're not talking sweep tomorrow because.
Well, this is the one you said they're going to get 1, Brian. This is the one they got.
Probably got to beat
down.
Yeah,
you go down 3 Cobb. It's like the idea of winning one and then heading back to Florida all the way down there to just get pumped and watch them win the Cup at home. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That sets into your mental. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Well, and again, you look at what happened last night, and today it's Luka Doncic. After the game, he was getting torched. Brian Windhorst did a hit on Scott Van Pelt that was very composed, like Windhorst always is, but incredibly scathing about the way this guy acts. And I watched the game last night. You guys saw it. Like he is complaining to the refs every single possession. Like it never stops.
Why doesn't Jason Kidd tell him to shut up? Because he's the coach of the team.
You're right. You would think that would be a part of the program, but the nature of the NBA is Luka's more powerful than Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd, there was a time Jason Kidd was the man 10 years ago, 20 years ago. No one was saying anything to him. Like when he fouled out, he yelled at the bench, "You better effing challenge that." And it was a stupid challenge that was never going to be overturned, and it wasn't. And then 30 seconds later, there was a challengeable play that they couldn't challenge because they wasted the challenge on Luka because he was being a suck. And, defensively he got torched and he was complaining nonstop and he fouled out. It was just a bad look. And
he was complaining after too, Brian.
Yes.
Like it's not enough that you were complaining and you're diving all over the place. Maybe after the game, just kind of leave it alone. Like
right.
you said your piece, you did your thing, you did the act. Like I don't know why he needs to keep going at it.
Well, guys, in his defense, I will say this: it's pissy and it's petulant, whatever you want to call it. But there is a guy that's done everything in his power, and sometimes you feel like you're on an island, and you probably know you're not good enough, and you're not getting the support, and you know you're not going to win. So it's the ultimate frustration. The guy played his ass off and played extremely well to get them to this point, and he hasn't exactly got any support, and that leads to the frustration. And you're just looking for an avenue to vent, and that's what he's done, because he knows it's game over, and he's pissed off.
Yep, that's fair. That's reasonable.
I'm just saying there is a competitive element to
I
it where he's just
that.
extremely disappointed because he's played so well to get them there. No support. Ultimately, it's not going to happen. And in his head, he's got to be thinking, man, I've had the Luka game time after time after time to get us here. Kyrie or the supporting staff can't step up and hold us in this series, and it pisses you off.
Yeah.
It's like playing a golf match with a guy that stinks the joint out. It's like, are you ever going to do anything?
It's
I've
very
experienced
frustrating.
it rather soon.
It's very frustrating.
Have you experienced that recently?
My buddy Joe the other day, I'm not going to say his last name, but yeah, I was on an island.
Yeah.
I was on an island.
All right.
Dude, it sucks for the other guy, man. Like, I've been that other guy when you know you can play better and you're just having a bad day and you know this guy's relying on you and you can't give him anything. You want to crawl into a hole, man.
That's it.
It's
want
an
to
awful
crawl
feeling.
into a hole.
It's an awful feeling, but we're amateur chops.
That's right. You know that's going to happen. When you're talking about professionals making that kind of money,
That's what
you
I'm
would think
saying.
that somebody would step up.
The worst part of that, the golf thing, is how many times do you say to your buddy and the guys you're playing with, guys, I don't usually play like this.
I know. It's
How many
embarrassing.
times?
You know how stupid you sound because when other guys say, you're like, yeah, of course, dude. But you have to say it. You got to give yourself a shot. Like, I'm throwing a lifeline out here. Hopefully you guys understand I'm better than this.
I had to ask my buddy, like, flat out in the cart. He was just so distraught. I asked him, I said, like, is there worse than this available from you?
That's
And
helpful.
he goes, I know
That's
it
a good
wasn't a
teammate.
nice thing to say, but I just
a
had
really
to.
good teammate.
I had to find out for myself. I said, "Is there worse out there? Like, is it?" And he just shook his head. And
It's like, no, bottom of the barrel.
dude, in the group text, he texted my other buddy because my other buddy gave him a hug on the 13th, and he said, "Thanks for the hug. I needed that." And I was like, "God,
That's depressing, dude. You got to
dude,
find
no
new
kidding."
buddies, man. Who are you playing
This guy
with? That's
shanking
sad.
everything in sight.
That's sad.
that day.
Getting hugs and
Jeez.
really
He said,
needing them.
"Thanks for the hug. I needed that." And
Yeah,
then the
that's
other
tough.
guy wrote back, "It's all right." And everyone, and I'm just like, "What are we
That's
doing
tough.
here?" Anyway, Luka clip.
All right, Luka, post-game last night.
We couldn't play physical, so I don't know. I don't want to say nothing, but six foul in the NBA Finals, where basically I'm like this. Come on, man, better than that.
So, yeah, he's bent out of shape, and everything you said is accurate. He's a young guy, first NBA Finals. But it's got to be a learning lesson, and you've got to challenge. You have to channel it, I guess is the point. It's never going to help you. It's never going to be something
the
that
John
benefits
Tavares line, the learning lesson.
Well,
Wow.
listen,
What is the
there's
learning lesson, Hayes? He can't bitch and complain in the finals?
I mean, it's pretty obvious. You can't, if you're going to go at the refs the whole time, if that's where your energy's going, it's not going to work for you. Like, I understand it. There are certain times for it. There are egregious moments. You're getting pissed off. You feel like he got fouled or whatever. But watching him last night, and really this has been his rep since he got in the league, it is constant. Like, it never stops. And it's not only about how the refs are going to perceive you, because they're not probably going to help you much, but it's where your energy's going. And it's sulking. It's like, how is that helping?
I blame the
your team?
organization, man. That's just the way. It's like the superstar on a team because everyone is so deathly afraid of their star players saying, I don't like the way I'm treated here. I'm going to leave. And if Luka leaves, they're screwed. So they probably don't say boo to him about anything.
Yep. He's the most powerful man in the organization.
Yeah. And if you totally
Not even
hand
close.
over the keys to the car to somebody and you say, your best player, your leader, you can do whatever you want. You're going to win some games and you're going to do a bunch of good things, but it's a dangerous game to say you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. Listen, emotion's a great thing. I'm not saying
that is a positive.
don't
At
play
least
with
he cares.
emotion and play with energy and all that kind of stuff. It just, if it's all the time, constant, like it's not going to work for you. Like you've got to scale it back in certain areas, and I'm not sure Luka's capable of doing that right now. We'll play the Windhorst on SVP later this afternoon. James Duthie coming up. Struddy coming up ahead of Game 3 tonight. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Jason Strudwick in about a half an hour. They will be partying in Edmonton tonight. They will be tailgating. They will be flooring it. But I have a question for you guys.
Yes.
Because obviously we know Edmonton's a great hockey market. They love their Oilers, and it's the Cup Final tonight. Very exciting stuff. Tomorrow, the Euros begin. Germany, Scotland. Who is going Stephen Caldwell more? Oilers fans leading into the game tonight, or the Scottish leading into the match tomorrow?
Dude, a couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
I'll take the Scots any damn day of the week, man.
They're back in the Euros playing the Germans, too. You know they hate on Germany so much.
They could have a preseason match on the pitch, and the Scots will floor it.
A couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
I got a lot of time for Alberta. They're going to floor it. They're going to have a great time. But when you start getting into the Scotland, Ireland, England realm of the world, forget about it.
Dude.
Like you're talking a different level there.
Friday night, 8 p.m. kickoff, Scotland in the Euros. It is going to be outrageous tomorrow night. Outrageous in Glasgow, in Edinburgh, anywhere. Like if you talk about courageous, you walk through the streets of Glasgow in a German kit tomorrow. Like just walk down the street with a Germany shirt on.
See what happens.
You are in for a serious conversation, and possibly more than that. Yeah, I'm going Stevie Caldwell and the Scots tomorrow, though I think it'll be energetic tonight in Edmonton.
Speaking of courageous, big timing Farhan Lalji is courageous.
Heard about that.
Yes.
Heard
and
about
Scott
that.
Thornton, evidently, as
embarrassing. I'm embarrassed. NHLPA Association, embarrassed.
Okay. Well,
what's going on with this guy, man?
Here's my partner. He's, you know what? He's a champion, is what he is. He's victorious. He's a great golfer, and he's also out in Edmonton. Here's my main man, JD. Partner, how are you? How are we feeling this afternoon?
You know, some of the great fiction writers of our time. Stephen King, perhaps. Trying to think of a great children's author. Dr. Seuss, perhaps. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey O'Neill.
Why to my fiction?
No one can conjure, create fake news like Jeffrey O'Neill.
You know who creates fake news, bud? Is you. Because I talked to you the night. We had to talk about something. And you said, well, that's what a 10 handicap does. But it's funny because in the morning I gave you 13 shots. Why did I give you 13? That's a whole difference in the match. Why did you all of a sudden just get 13?
If you understand how the handicap system works, like a scratch golfer should, the factor is 10. Once the factor is incorporated into a difficult Beacon Hall golf course, the 10 quickly turns to a 13.
Correct. I know what he did. I already know what he did. He had the Golf Canada app open. He punched in everyone's name, and it just shot out a number at him. And he said, "This is what I get." Mm-hmm. Am I right, James?
I don't even think I came up with the 13. I think I left that to Hazy B or Donnie Nickel. But whatever it was valid. I mean, you beat me by like 16 or 17, I think, overall. So I think I should have got 15, clearly.
You're right.
And then it would have been over on 14.
You played your number.
So just quickly to address this garbage, which I shouldn't have to address, frankly.
Tell us about
But I shouldn't have to dignify. I'm leaving the Air Canada lounge with LeBron, another fake news creator. I mean, how do you even believe his lies on insider trading when you hear this? And Farhan Lalji walks off the elevator. Farhan, who I've seen like twice in the last 2 weeks because he keeps coming to Toronto. I give him a large hug. I say, love you, Farhan. I got to go catch a plane. I guess LeBron hasn't seen him in a year, so he's like, whoa, that was a big time. We can't just walk away. You guys talk about this all the time. I'm not going to stop and talk 15 minutes before my boarding call to Farhan, who I talk to all the time. Nice, cordial hug. Scott Thornton, saw him getting on the plane. How you doing, buddy? Great to see you. Sit down, focus on the Cup final. So if those are considered snubs, then I am what I am. Then if I'm a snubber, I'm a snubber.
All right, I can accept that. That sounds very reasonable to me.
I felt like Farhan just deserved a nod, and I gave him a hug.
There you go.
Scott Thornton, he deserved a gracious hello. And that's all I can give you people.
All right. Well, give us the scene setting from Edmonton. Nervous energy. Are the bars packed? Like, what kind of vibe are we expecting tonight?
I think the nervous part, I think it's going to be nervous bedlam, if that's such a phrase, because it's going to be nuts in here. It's funny, I was just kind of doing self-reminiscing today because 2006 was my first Cup final for TSN. I started hosting in 2002, but remember it used to be kind of Gordo, Bob, Pierre, and so Gordo kept doing the finals for a couple more years before I started doing them. And I remember sitting in there, Game 3, I guess, against Carolina, thinking this is the loudest building I've ever been in my life in any sport. And that sort of has stuck with me, and I've never been in this building for a playoff game, so we'll see what it's like tonight, but apparently it's going to be louder. So the bedlam is obvious, but there's definitely going to be a nervous energy because all this crap cliche that we used to spew out about a series doesn't start till you lose a game on home ice is garbage, because you can not lose a game on home ice when you don't have home ice advantage and lose the series 4-3. So this is an elimination game essentially for the Oilers. You're not going to win. I don't care if you have the two best players in the world, or 1 or 1A or whatever it may be. You're not winning 4 straight against the Florida Panthers. And I think the fan base here is fully aware of that. And so you have this, man, we've waited 18 years for this. We can't wait to have a Stanley Cup Final game at home. But holy crap, it's over in 3 hours if we lose this one. And I think you'll feel both of those through your television screens tonight.
What was it like following the Florida Panthers and their travel problems yesterday? Was that a big talking point at the arena?
Yeah.
Like, what was everyone kind of in the industry saying about that?
Did we blow it out of proportion, Jimmy, or what?
Well, look, this is what we do, especially on double off days in the Stanley Cup Final. You're desperate for something to talk about because you can only talk about the Oilers' power play for, you do post-game after the game. You do pregame the next day, pregame again the next day. We'll do pregame tonight. And so I think the media gets really hungry for anything to talk about. And I thought it was valid because, look, I trust you guys and what players think. And Noodles thought it was strange to not come in 2 days before. The Panthers certainly downplayed it today. Look, every team has a sports science department. Their sports science people told them that the day of recovery at home is more important than getting acclimated to the time zone, whatever it may be. So I had a long chat with Aaron Ekblad today, and he said it was great. Like he enjoyed being at home. They sat on, the only dicey part was they sat on the tarmac for 90 minutes, and at one point the runway was flooded. So I think there might have been a few anxious moments of, man, if we don't get out of here, then we have issues. But they arrived 2 hours later than they planned to arrive. We'll see. I mean, if they come out flat tonight, then I think it's a valid case that maybe you should have been here. They haven't been out of their time zone since I think March 12th or March 14th. So if they come out flat somehow tonight, it was weird to watch them. This wasn't your morning skate Stanley Cup Final today. This was a full-ass practice. Like, they skated hard for 45 minutes. And, usually morning skates Cup Final, they do a couple laps. It's 10 minutes and see you later, do a little media and you're gone. So that was interesting and probably something they needed after the long flight. But I think if they perform well tonight, it's obviously a non-issue. If they look flat tonight, then maybe you say maybe they should have come in 2 days early.
Jimmy, if the Oilers ultimately get pumped in 4 or it's over quickly, which it looks like it could happen, what do you think this all means for McDavid and Draisaitl? Is it just, well, it's another stepping stone and we go get him next year? I mean, the Panthers have re-racked it and got back to the finals immediately, but that doesn't seem like a certainty for anybody. It seems so difficult.
I think that's fair, I think with almost any team, I think if this was 4 years ago, then you could say this was a big stepping stone. They got to a Stanley Cup Final, and, sky's the limit. You learn from it, whatever. But I think where they are, both in their careers and their contracts, makes this a different situation, which makes it almost, more painful that we got this far. And, I've said when people ask me for predictions before the series started, even though Florida looks like the more complete team, I've been saying for the last couple of years that I really thought that once McDavid and Draisaitl could sniff a Stanley Cup, and in my mind, that was like 6 wins away. So halfway through that Dallas series, I didn't think they could be stopped. I always thought in my head, no matter who the opponent is, once these guys get close to it, they're going to find a way to win it. And maybe that still happens. But I think it'll be a devastating loss for them. Like every Stanley Cup Final loss, it is devastating. But I think particularly for these two guys, all the attention they've been in, all the failures of the past, to finally get here, and if they go out in 4 or 5, that'll be like doubly crushing. And as far as their futures go, I mean, I can't predict what's going to happen, but it'll be a tough road to get back next year. What Florida's done this year, I think, is, like, if we go by history, is kind of a rarity, right? The Kings had those jump back every couple of years, and Chicago won every couple of years and won 3 cups, and Pittsburgh got their back-to-back years and won back-to-back years and got back-to-back years back in the early years against Detroit, but it's pretty tough.
With James Duthie, in terms of McDavid in particular, what do you expect from him tonight, and how much could he play? Like, could we see 27, 28, 30 minutes tonight if they go 7D, 11 forwards? Like, I could see that happening.
Yeah, it's Game 7, and I think with last change, Knobloch was very careful today to say, I don't want to chase matchups because that just gets everybody out of rhythm. But I think what he can do is move both of those guys all over the place, and so that they're both playing on all 4 lines, right? They're playing together here and there, that one of them is going to be on the ice probably, 48 of the 60 minutes, or maybe 50 out of the 60 minutes, something like that, because I think that's what he'll do. Is they're getting nothing from, they're not getting much from those two, and they're not getting anything from anybody else. So I think that you'll see one of those two on the ice the vast majority of the night.
Not that it should be a big excuse, but it is a very real thing about how banged up some of the Edmonton Oilers players are. How much chatter about that is there at the arena when you're at morning skate in the afternoon about the players that are banged up and their status for the game and what they can contribute?
Well, it was funny today because the two coaches took very different approaches. Paul Maurice was asked about Barkov and Tarasenko. I didn't even know Tarasenko was hurt, so I don't think a lot of people did, but apparently some Florida reporter did.
Great studying, Jimmy. Great studying.
It's so hard to keep track. Besides the obvious ones like the nurses and the Barkov, I mean, everybody's got something like but Maurice said in a heartbeat they're both good to go, whereas Knobloch said you'll have to wait and see on Nurse and Kane. I think Draisaitl has already reported today that he thinks Kane is doubtful to play, and I don't think that should surprise anyone. He can't move out there at all. And so Corey Perry probably comes back in, and Kane is out, and Nurse would be the big question to me as to what they get out of him, because that was a weird deal the other night of him staying on the bench and then trying to come back. And I don't know that whatever he had, that doesn't get healed in 2 magical days, no matter what the meds are and such. So I think that that'll be. I think we won't see Kane, and Nurse will be a real big question, and it'll be interesting to see if they go, 11-7 or something, just in case Nurse, tries to go and can't. But none of it matters. They have to score. They have to score on the power play. It's what amazes me about hockey in general and the playoffs and every playoff series. You heard these guys yesterday and today, and they're like, we got to compete, we got to win battles. We haven't done that. Well, that's the case every single game.
In an exhibition game.
I don't know how that works. I don't know how suddenly you can be more urgent in Game 3 than you were in Game 2 when you should have been equally as urgent, yes. But you're not. And Paul Maurice talked about it, that you can't, desperation only happens from situation, basically, right? So you can talk yourself into thinking you're desperate in Game 2, but you really weren't. And now you really are in Game 3. And so you will find that extra 2% or 3% or whatever to win puck battles. But it always amazes me about hockey because obviously every game in the Stanley Cup Final, you should be equally desperate. But that's not the way the human brain and body works, I guess.
Well, Jimmy, that maybe is a signal that your team's maybe not ready to do it, because if you're not super desperate in game 2, leaving Florida with a split, and I know Draisaitl said they were, but he also said, you know what, if we don't win this one, it's not the end of the world. Maybe that's just the wrong...
He said that before the game.
No, I know, dude. He goes, if we don't get this one, it's not the end of the world, where it kind of was.
Yeah, maybe you wanted that one.
I think sometimes, though, you know, these guys have to talk a lot, and I think sometimes they say things that maybe they don't mean necessarily in the way they come out, because obviously they wanted it badly, and you know, there's no lack of trying here thing. Florida's really good, and I think the Oilers are super frustrated. They're trying to not admit that they're frustrated, but they're finding out what everybody else found out before them in Tampa and the Rangers, et cetera, is that they get harder to play against every single game. And if I was the Oilers, the scariest thing to me is that Sam Reinhart's done nothing and Matthew Tkachuk's done nothing really offensively. And so you could argue, even though the Panthers played a really good playoff game last game, that they haven't played like Panther Max game yet. And so that would concern me a little bit if I was Edmonton.
Yep, absolutely. All right, JD, enjoy yourself tonight. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
Okay, guys, stop spreading the fake news, okay?
We will stop. I will put a stop to it. You're
I'm
my partner. I
cordial,
won't allow it.
Yet not overly friendly.
Yes.
That's the way I am in airports. Cordial, yet not overly friendly.
Absolutely fine. I think that's reasonable and should be expected. For
Good talking
everybody,
to you,
there's a lesson here.
Let's do it again.
All right, JD. Thank you.
Come on,
There's
man.
James Duthie, my partner. Getting 13. I was getting a few myself, but...
Dude, you can't get 13 shots and start bragging about a win. Come
Do
on.
you know how embarrassing that is, Frank?
It's
like
so
all they got to do
embarrassing,
is
man.
chop it around. 5. You should have heard these two.
Oh,
It was
5 for 4.
pathetic.
High five. Hey, Partsy, 5 for 4.
Yeah. Dude,
Yeah.
that's
the
all
game,
I heard
man. I
for
didn't
4
create
hours.
it. I didn't invent golf. I didn't invent the handicap system or match play.
But the
Just
worst,
make sure we two-putt this.
No, the King Daddy topper is, what'd you make there? I made 4. And then he just turns to the right and he goes, with a shot. And it's just like, how pathetic of a human are you to even
that's
toss
listen,
that
you're
one
Luka
out there?
Doncic, man. You're Luka, and we're the
I know.
Celtics.
I know.
You complain, and you haven't stopped complaining. And JD and I, we're Tatum, Brown. We're just going about our business.
I got to
And
be
we're winning
honest, though,
rings.
like, it doesn't seem like real golf. Like, to just play a straight-up match with a grown man and just say, let's golf, it doesn't seem like real life where you're like, I made a 5, but it's actually a 4.
Net 4. You have to have it, man.
I get
You've
it.
got
I
to
get
have
it. But if that's the deal in your life and you like doing that, go ahead. But
Yeah,
it
I
doesn't
do.
seem.
I like it a lot.
For me, I don't
really
feel like
enjoy
it's
it.
real.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
If you ever played Scotty Scheffler, what are you going to play him straight up? You get dusted. Like you'd have to get strokes, right? I mean, that's just the nature.
You'd probably
of it.
have to give me a 5-pack.
I think you
Scotty
probably have to give you
Scheffler.
more than that. But
Well, there's only +7s. Like
Yeah.
you can't go.
so you'd have to give you 7 if you're playing off the scratch. Anyway,
What do you
it
think,
doesn't
Scotty? Like, if Scotty pulls up to one of our tracks we play, like, I don't know,
64,
Coppenwood or Weston.
65.
For
Yeah.
fun.
Yes,
For fun.
especially for
Never seen it
Marquise.
before either. Never seen it before.
No, he's never seen
Guaranteed.
Pinehurst number 2.
He
He's
would
never-
only shoot 2 scores at Weston. One possibility is 60, and the other is 59.
Yeah, agreed. I totally agree. Oh, he's 1 over through 11 right now, so he's grinding.
Yeah, he is grind. It is a grind, and you're right, Hayes. I like watching them grind. Like it's
Yeah.
not ridiculous where it's unplayable, but they're getting some funky lies and that weedy stuff on the right. And by the way, you can go wherever you want to golf. If you're a golfer and you just you got to go down there and check that place out if you want a golf trip because it's that good.
Yeah, it looks amazing. There's 10 courses or whatever. I mean,
It
just
is
a perfect
so
setup.
good. It's so good.
On the East Coast, it's great. If you're in Toronto or whatever, it's perfect. All right, we've got Struddy coming up, Dave Naylor coming up. We'll play Leon on the Barkov hit. Very defensive of himself, the way he plays. A little bit surprised by that. We'll play it. We'll get into it. Chris Bassett also talking about the makeup of the Jays and what has to happen for them to have success. We'll play that. We'll get into it. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Jason Strudwick coming up in the next hour. Teeing up Game 3 to Cup Final. We'll play Leon Draisaitl from today on his Barkov hit. Barkov's fine. He'll be in the lineup tonight. Jay's off today. Back in action tomorrow. Got some Chris Bassett audio we'll play as well after the game last night. And tracking this UFC 303 stuff, it sounds like it's over. Like McGregor's not fighting. It's not going to happen. And
What is
now
the
they're just
reasoning?
scrambling.
Just he's not ready. Like he didn't get ready, or
I don't know. I haven't seen any answers as to why. I'm not at all surprised that this guy is just got different priorities.
I thought I saw him partying recently.
He was partying.
He was getting it after it somewhere.
Yeah. Which, again, a guy, he's not young anymore. He hasn't fought in a long time. He's coming off a gruesome injury. Who knows, man? Who knows? Anything could be possible. The testing process, whether or not you're in shape, did you get injured? But this was going to be the big one for the UFC. Like McGregor's return in Vegas.
So why do you feel that? Have they said it's basically not happening, or are you just
well,
going
that's
off
Ariel
Twitter?
Helwani's the one that's reporting that. And Ariel's as connected as anybody when it comes to MMA. And Ariel's gone back and forth, but today he's basically saying he'd be shocked if this fight took place. So think about how many people bought flights, how many people had hotels, had tickets, and you're there simply to see McGregor. And if he doesn't show up or isn't a part of it, I don't know. You probably still follow through.
I'm not canceling that until 5 minutes before the fight.
Yeah.
All those people that wanted to go out there for that, they'd be pissed.
They would be pissed.
You'll find something else to do.
They will scramble. They'll put a card
to
together. They'll put money up for other guys to step in. That's the nature of the fight game. Guys will fight on like 2 weeks rest.
Yeah, but you said it, Hayes. It's not. If
it's not McGregor. He's the man. Yeah. He is a different cat altogether when it comes to generating buzz. And sounds like that card is going to be off. Not the card. The card will go on, but that fight is probably not going to happen. Hour 2 coming up. Dave Naylor will join us. We'll get into a number of things with the nail gun. Strutty coming up as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.